All right, so we're diving into IELTS speaking today.
Yes, we are.
Specifically, part one, which can be a little bit intimidating, when you're first thinking about the IELTS exam. You're like, what is this part one all about? So we're going to go deep using this fantastic IELTS prep course that we found that has some really great advice that I think is going to help all of our listeners out there who are prepping for this exam.
Absolutely.
And feel confident going into it.
Yes.
So let's just start off by getting a clear picture
Sure.
of what part one is.
Okay.
What are we dealing with here?
So part one is focused on familiar topics.
Okay.
Things like hobbies, your hometown,
Okay.
daily routines.
Okay.
It's designed to be very conversational kind of experience.
So they're not looking
Yeah.
for you to give like a presentation
Or like a
formal.
really just a
Oh.
chance for you to showcase your natural speaking style in English.
Okay, so I imagine this actually plays to a lot of our listeners' strengths because, our listeners are
Exactly.
learners. They're very good at picking things up and being able to use their English naturally. But then when they get into a test scenario,
Yes.
they might freeze up a little bit.
Exactly.
So this is good. It's good to know that they're actually looking for.
It's a good warm-up.
Yeah.
It's meant to get you comfortable in talking, and it's also the examiner's first impression of your spoken English.
No, okay.
They're really looking for fluency and coherence in this section.
Okay, so you want to sound like you're speaking smoothly.
Yes.
And your ideas are connected
Exactly.
in a way that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, fluency and coherence. Got it.
Yeah.
Now I know that there is more to the scoring than just that.
Yes, there is.
What other things are they listening for?
So there are actually 4 assessment criteria that the examiners are listening
Right.
for.
Yeah.
We've talked about fluency and coherence.
Yeah.
They're also listening for your lexical resource,
Okay.
grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation.
Okay, lots to unpack there. What in the world does lexical resource mean?
Yeah, so lexical resource basically means vocabulary.
Okay.
So they want to see that you have a variety of vocabulary.
Okay.
You're not just using the same simple words over and over again.
So it's not just about being accurate.
Right.
It's about showing.
Yes, it's about range
Yeah.
and sophistication.
Okay, so like if I was talking about my daily routine and I just said, I drink coffee,
Yeah.
how could I spice that up a little?
You could say, I grab a quick coffee.
Okay.
Or you could say, I brew a fresh cup of coffee.
Oh, I see.
So you're kind of elaborating
Yeah.
and using a little bit more descriptive language.
Okay.
That shows that you have that range.
Got it.
But you don't want to force it.
Right.
It still needs to sound natural
Okay.
and like you would in a regular conversation.
Okay. And I'm guessing grammatical range and accuracy means
Yes.
using correct grammar and
Yes. Using correct grammar.
mixing it up.
Yes. Mixing up those sentence structures.
Yeah.
Showing the examiner that you can handle different tenses, different lengths of sentences, and different grammatical constructions.
Okay. So we've got fluency, we've got vocabulary, we've got grammar.
Yes.
What about pronunciation?
So with pronunciation, the key is clarity.
Hmm.
You want to make sure that you're speaking clearly,
Okay.
that you're emphasizing important words, and that you're not rushing.
Okay.
You want to have a natural pace that allows the examiner to easily understand what you're saying.
Okay.
You want to think about it as just having a chat with a friend.
Okay.
You want to be understood,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't need to sound like a newsreader.
Right. Like you're reading a script.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So now that we know kind of what the examiners are listening for,
Yes.
let's get into some strategy.
Okay.
Is there any magic formula to structuring my answers in part one?
Yeah. So there's no secret code.
Right.
But structure can be really, really helpful.
Okay.
And one really good structure to think about is this.
Okay.
You start with the direct answer to the question.
Okay.
Then you elaborate on that answer.
Okay.
And then you give a specific example.
Direct answer,
Yes.
elaboration,
Uh-huh.
and example.
Example.
Okay. I like it. So can we walk through a
Yeah.
specific example?
Absolutely.
How about the question?
Yeah.
What's a typical day like for you?
Okay.
How would you use that structure to answer that question?
All right. So first, you would give that direct answer. So you might say something like,
Okay.
well, my typical day starts around 7 a.m.
Okay.
Then you're going to elaborate, adding some details and maybe some reasons.
Uh-huh.
So you could follow that up by saying,
Okay.
I like to get a head start on the day with a quick yoga session.
Okay.
It helps me feel energized and focused.
Okay.
And then finally, you're going to give that specific example
Okay.
to really make your answer engaging. So you could say,
Okay.
for example, yesterday, I tried new yoga flow that I found online, and it was fantastic.
Okay, so we gave that clear answer.
Yes.
And then we kind of built on it.
Exactly.
With details.
Yes.
And then with a more personal anecdote.
Yes, a personal touch.
Okay.
Exactly.
I like it. I can already see how that would help me feel less nervous, too.
Exactly, and it helps you hit those criteria that we talked about.
Yeah.
You're showing your vocabulary.
Yeah.
You're showing your grammatical range.
Yeah.
It's all very naturally embedded in this structure.
I like it. Okay, so let's dive into some actual Part 1 questions now.
Okay.
I hear that they often ask about
Yes.
daily routines in Part 1.
Yes, that's very common.
Okay, is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you might get a question like, what's your typical day like?
Yes.
Do you have a set routine every day?
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so pretty common questions.
Yes, those are very common.
That most people can relate to.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say the examiner throws me a curveball and says, what do you usually do in the evenings?
Okay.
How would I tackle that one?
All right, well, remember that structure.
Okay.
Direct answer, elaboration, and example.
Okay.
What comes to mind when you hear that question?
Okay, what do you usually do in the evenings?
Mm-hmm. Let me think.
Yeah, take your time. I guess I'd say something like, I usually spend my evenings relaxing.
Okay.
You know, maybe watching a movie or reading a book.
Okay. That's a good start.
Okay.
But remember, we want to add some depth.
Okay.
So think about some more descriptive language and a specific example that you can give.
You're right. Okay, let's try this. After a long day, I really value my evenings as a time to unwind.
Okay.
I might curl up with a good book, especially a gripping mystery novel, or catch up on my favorite TV shows.
Much better.
Okay.
Now you're painting a picture for the examiner.
Yeah.
And showcasing some nice vocabulary.
Okay, I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like building a mini story.
Exactly.
With each answer.
Yes.
Okay, and speaking of stories.
Yes.
Another great way to practice for Part 1.
Absolutely.
Is to hear how other people answer questions.
Exactly.
So are we talking about like eavesdropping on someone else's IELTS exam?
Not quite, but we can listen to a role play
Okay.
between two IELTS candidates, Alex and Mia, as they practice answering questions about daily routines.
I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
Okay, so Mia's going to play the role of the examiner first.
Okay.
And she's going to ask Alex the first question. What's a typical day like for you?
All right, and what does Alex say?
So Alex answers, my day usually starts around 7 a.m. I like to get a head start on the day with a quick run in the park. It helps me feel refreshed and ready to tackle anything. After that, I have a light breakfast, usually cereal or toast, before heading to work. My workday is pretty hectic, filled with meetings and emails, but I always try to make time for a proper lunch break. Then in the evenings, I love spending time with my family or unwinding with a good movie before heading to bed around 10:30 p.m.
Wow. He really packed a lot of detail into that answer.
He did.
And I noticed that he didn't just list activities, he also explained why he does them.
Exactly.
Like running to feel refreshed or
Yeah.
spending time with his family, because I'm assuming that's important to him.
Right, and that's a great way to showcase your vocabulary and fluency naturally. He's not just giving a robotic answer.
Right.
He's expressing himself.
Yeah, I like how he threw in some nice vocabulary to hectic unwinding tackle.
Yeah.
Didn't sound forced at all.
Right, and that's the key. You know, he's thought about the language he wants to use,
Yeah.
but it still sounds conversational.
Okay, I'm impressed. What's the next question that Mia asks him?
Okay, so the next question Mia asks is, do you usually do the same things every day?
Ooh, that one's a bit trickier.
Yeah.
It's kind of inviting him to talk about variety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Alex says, well, most weekdays follow a similar pattern, which helps me stay organized and productive. However, I do try to mix things up a bit to keep things interesting. For example, I might experiment with new dinner recipes a couple of times a week, or try different workout routines in the mornings. It's all about finding a balance between routine and spontaneity.
I like that.
Yeah.
I heard, however, is a good connector to use in IELTS. And it seems like a really smooth way to transition
Yes,
to
absolutely.
that part of his answer.
Connectors are great
Yeah.
for the IELTS exam.
And I like how he used the phrase mix things up.
Yeah.
It's simple,
Uh-huh.
but it adds a little bit of personality.
Exactly, and those little touches can really make a difference.
Okay, I'm ready for Mia's turn in the hot seat now.
Right.
I bet she's got some great answers too.
Let's see.
All right.
So Alex is going to be the examiner now,
Okay.
and he's going to ask Mia, is there anything you would like to change about your daily routine.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
It's a chance for her to reflect a little.
exactly.
What does she say?
Mia says, I've been thinking about trying to wake up a bit earlier so I can fit in some meditation before work. I heard it can be really beneficial for reducing stress and improving focus. I just need to work on becoming more of a morning person.
I love how she admits she's not perfect.
Yes.
It makes her sound really relatable.
Exactly, and it adds a bit of humor, too.
Yeah, and she still managed to use some nice vocabulary.
Yes.
Like beneficial and reducing stress.
Absolutely, and she's not trying to present this perfect version of herself. She's honest about her challenges
Yeah.
and her aspirations.
Okay, hit me with the last question for Mia.
All right, Alex asks, do you have a different routine on weekends?
Of course he does.
Classic question
Yeah.
about weekends.
Because weekends are usually more flexible.
Exactly.
But what does she say?
She replies, oh, definitely my weekends are all about flexibility and enjoying my free time. I usually sleep in a bit later, maybe until 8 or 9, and then I like to spend the day doing things I don't have time for during the week. It could be anything from hiking with friends to exploring new cafes in the city, for instance. Just last weekend, I went to this amazing new bakery downtown. They had the most delicious sourdough bread I've ever tasted.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love how she contrasts her weekend routine,
Yeah.
her weekday routine.
Yeah.
And she ended with a really vivid example.
Yeah, and that makes you want to go to that bakery.
I know.
Right?
I'm hungry now.
You see, she's not just giving information. She's telling a story.
Yes, and those stories make the answers much more memorable.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm feeling super inspired
Good.
by Alex and Mia's role play.
Yeah.
They made it sound so effortless
Yeah.
and engaging, but I'm curious, are there any specific tips or tricks
Yes.
that the experts recommend to boost our score in part 1?
Absolutely. So this IELTS prep course that we're looking at,
Yeah.
they have some great insider advice.
Okay, I'm ready to spill the tea.
Okay.
What do they have to say?
One of the biggest things that they emphasize
Okay.
is the importance of pausing.
Pausing.
Yes.
I thought the goal was to speak fluently.
Yes. But fluency.
Without any breaks.
Fluency is about the flow of your speech, not necessarily speaking without taking a breath.
Oh, okay.
So well-placed pauses can actually make you sound more natural
Oh.
and give you a moment to gather your thoughts.
So I don't need to be afraid of those little silences.
Exactly.
Great.
So don't be afraid to take a moment to think before you answer.
Okay.
It shows that you're considering the question carefully.
Okay.
And remember those connectors that we talked about,
Yeah.
like however and for instance.
Yeah.
Those can also help you create those natural pauses and transitions in your speech.
Okay, those are great tips. Are there any other secrets that these experts are willing to share?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another really key piece of advice that they give
Right.
is to be yourself.
Okay.
Don't try to memorize answers or
Mm.
sound like someone you're not.
Right.
The examiners are looking for genuine communication.
Okay.
So let your personality shine through.
So it's okay to be a little bit funny
Yes.
or tell a personal anecdote if it fits the question.
Absolutely.
Okay, like Mia and the sourdough bread.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about part 1,
Good.
but I do have one kind of lingering question.
Okay.
What happens if I completely blank on a question?
Don't panic.
Okay.
It happens to the best of us. The first thing you want to do is just take a deep breath.
Okay.
And remember those pausing techniques?
Right, give myself a moment.
Buy yourself some time to think.
Okay.
And if you still can't come up with anything,
Mm-hmm.
it's perfectly fine to politely ask the examiner to repeat the question.
Okay.
Or you can even say something like, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment.
Okay, so it's more about how I handle the situation than pretending that I know everything.
The examiners understand that you're under pressure.
Right.
They're not looking for perfection.
Yeah.
They're looking for your ability to communicate effectively.
Okay. I love that perspective.
Good.
It takes a lot of the pressure off.
And remember, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
The more you practice answering these part 1 questions, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
This deep dive has been so helpful.
I
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding
It's wonderful.
of IELTS speaking part 1.
I'm so glad to hear that.
And thanks to those expert tips, I feel much better equipped to do just that, you know?
Excellent.
I especially love the advice about using pauses strategically
Yes.
and not being afraid to ask for clarification if I need it.
Those are great strategies to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the power of storytelling.
Right.
Adding those little personal touches can make your answers stand out.
You're right. It's not about just giving the textbook answer. It's about
Exactly.
letting my personality shine through.
Exactly.
So as I continue preparing for part one,
Yes.
I'm going to practice answering a wide range of questions, but I'm also going to think about those little details, those stories that I can use to make my answers more engaging.
Exactly.
Okay, now before we wrap up, I have to ask.
Sure.
What is one final piece of advice you would give to someone getting ready to tackle IELTS speaking, part one?
The best advice I can give is to relax and be yourself. Remember, the examiner is simply there to assess your English skills, not to judge you as a person.
Okay.
So take a deep breath, smile, and show them what you can do.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's all about approaching the exam with confidence and a positive mindset.
Exactly. You've got this.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
You're very welcome.
We hope you found it insightful and helpful in your IELTS journey.
Absolutely.
And to all of you future IELTS champions out there, remember, practice makes progress.
Yes.
Keep refining your skills and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you in the next part.
Sounds good. So one of the biggest things that they emphasize is the importance of pausing.
Pausing. I thought the goal was to speak fluently without any breaks.
Yeah. So fluency is about the flow of your speech, not necessarily speaking without taking a breath.
Oh, okay.
So well-placed pauses can actually make you sound more natural and give you a moment to gather your thoughts.
Oh, that makes sense. I guess I've been so focused on not umming and ahhing that I forgot about the power of a good pause.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to take a moment to think before you answer. It shows you're considering the question carefully. And remember those connectors we talked about, like however and for instance. They can also help you create those natural pauses and transitions in your speech.
Okay, those are great tips. Are there any other secrets that these experts are willing to share?
Another key piece of advice that they give is to be yourself. Don't try to memorize answers or sound like someone you're not. The examiners are looking for genuine communication. So let your personality shine through.
So it's okay to be a little bit funny or to tell a personal anecdote if it fits the question.
Absolutely. It can make your answers more engaging and memorable. Remember Mia talking about that delicious sourdough bread? That's a great example of adding a personal touch.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a lot more confident about part one, but I do have one kind of lingering question. What happens if I completely blank on a question?
Don't panic. It happens to the best of us. The first thing you want to do is just take a deep breath and remember those pausing techniques. Buy yourself some time to think. And if you still can't come up with anything, it's perfectly fine to politely ask the examiner to repeat the question. Or you could even say something like, "That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment."
Okay, so it's more about how I handle the situation than pretending that I know everything.
Exactly. The examiners understand that you're under pressure. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for your ability to communicate effectively.
Okay, I love that perspective. It takes a lot of the pressure off.
And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you practice answering these part one questions, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
This deep dive has been so helpful. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of IELTS speaking part one.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Remember, the key takeaway here is that part one is all about demonstrating your ability to communicate naturally and effectively in English.
And I feel like, thanks to those expert tips, I'm much better equipped to do just that. I especially love the advice about using pauses strategically and not being afraid to ask for clarification if I need it.
Yeah, those are great strategies to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And don't forget about the power of storytelling. Adding those little personal touches can really make your answers stand out.
You're right. It's not just about giving a textbook answer. It's about letting my personality and experiences shine through.
Exactly. So as you continue preparing for part one, I encourage you to practice answering a wide range of questions.
Yeah.
But also think about those little details and stories you can use to make your answers truly engaging.
Yeah, I'm already brainstorming ideas.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I have to ask, what is one final piece of advice you would give to someone getting ready to tackle IELTS speaking part one?
Okay. The best advice I can give is to relax and be yourself. Remember, the examiner is simply there to assess your English skills, not to judge you as a person. So take a deep breath, smile, and show them what you can do.
I love that. It's all about approaching the exam with confidence.
In a positive mindset.
Exactly. You've got this. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into IELTS speaking part one. We hope you found it insightful and helpful in your IELTS preparation journey. And to all you future IELTS champions out there, remember, Practice makes progress. Keep refining your skills and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Absolutely.